What's going on, guys? Thank you all for tuning in to another video, and today we're going to talk about 5 of the biggest myths associated with probiotics. Now, in today's gut supplement and health food industry, no product seems to be more beloved than probiotics. You're seeing them now in candy bars and in cookies and cereal, and everyone's telling you to take them for everything for IBS and irritable bowel disease, to even take probiotics for obesity and type 2 diabetes. Now, I've written several articles and there's several posts on my Instagram that are tailored to what you should look for in probiotics and what kind of conditions probiotics can help support. But today I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've seen a lot and the science just doesn't point to that. And number 1 is that probiotics colonize the gut. You hear people say, oh, I'm not feel great, so I'm going to take some probiotics just to reseed my gut bacteria. Actually, science tells us that's not exactly how it works. And there are multiple reasons why. Number 1, our stomach is one of the most acidic environments in the planet. And what that means is it doesn't favor the growth of a lot of organisms. So a lot of times, especially if you take low quality probiotics, they can't even survive the stomach environment. And I've talked about this on a previous Instagram post. That's why one of the things you want to look for in a probiotic is what it'll say on the ingredient list, enteric coated capsule, because that'll help it to survive the really, really acidic and really low pH environment that is the human stomach. The other reason is probiotics have more of what's called a transient effect. So they serve most of their role not by actually reseeding the gut, but when they pass through, they release maybe antimicrobial peptides, or they act themselves as prebiotics for the good guys that are already there. And when you think about, there's trillions and trillions of bacteria within our gut, and if you look at most probiotic supplements, even a serving is anywhere I've seen 5 to 50 billion colony forming units. So that's 50 billion into multiple trillion. That's a drop in the bucket. So that's really not enough of a dosage or enough of bacteria to make a change. And a lot of times you're seeing 1 to 5 to sometimes I've seen 10 strains. And there are thousands of strains of bacteria and species in the human gut. So just to take 5 or 10 specific strains and thinking that's going to totally change the environment, science doesn't exactly support that. The second myth out there, and this kind of builds off the first one, is that taking more or taking a higher dose is better. Like I just mentioned, there's trillions of bacteria within our gut. So some people think of the idea of, hey, we'll just equal the dosage till it gets to trillion, which, my gosh, I can't even do that calculation in my head right now because math is hard. But our bacteria within our gut stays within a very tight range. That's called homeostasis. And it really fights hard and hard to keep itself within that range. So if you overwhelm the system with too high of a dose of probiotics, you're probably going to get some adverse side effects, namely diarrhea, abdominal pain, probably bloating, and it's really not going to be fun for everybody involved. And then you're probably not going to be able to get the same beneficial effects from the dosage if you're taking it too high. So then you're almost just wasting your money. So guys, just to reiterate, more of a dose is not always better, especially when it comes to probiotics. All right, the third myth, and this is one that I actually believed for the longest time, is that if you're going to take antibiotics, make sure you take lots of probiotics with it. Now, based on what we've already talked about as misconceptions in the probiotic landscape, kind of think about why that wouldn't really make sense. Because people used to say that because they thought that probiotics reseeded or actually colonized our gut bacteria. And like we talked about in the beginning, they don't. So in actuality, people thought it was, antibiotics are taking away some, so let's just make it equivocal and just put it back with the probiotics. Not how it works, and a lot of times antibiotics are way stronger and way more potent than any probiotic that is currently on the market will be. And many instances, if you're taking an antibiotic, hopefully the clinician is trying to kill a specific thing, and so it may not be beneficial to try and favor the growth of the current bacterial environment because there's something not good growing in there, so you want to go off and kill that thing and then worry about it. So this is what I've kind of started to formulate is, most antibiotics, a lot of them are given for strep throat or an ear infection or some sort of sinus infection. A lot of times it's just a 10 to 14 day course of antibiotics. So it's really not worth your money to try and megadose with probiotics during that same period. What I would do is I would just keep my normal dietary patterns over that time period, and then after I'm off the antibiotics, I would incorporate some different things to support leaky gut, and then I would also try to incorporate a greens or a reds juice because there's so many different keyword different types of plant material and plant fibers that it's going to favor the growth of good guys that have been subsided or kind of haven't grown as much during that or been killed off from the antibiotics. So we want to start really trying to regrow the good guys, and one of the best ways to regrow beneficial bacteria is to eat as diverse a diet as possible. But you have to be careful because some people actually develop dysbiosis associated with after antibiotics. So then like I've talked about in previous videos, with some people with dysbiosis actually can't handle a wide array of fruits and vegetables. So that's where it gets really nuanced and really individual, and that's where it's important to work with an experienced clinician that knows how to incorporate different strategies around antibiotics. The fourth biggest misconception that I've seen around probiotics is that fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, fermented yogurt, and everyone's favorite kombucha act as probiotics. Not true, and here's why. There's a very specific definition around probiotics that supplemental probiotics have to meet. And it's kind of nuanced and into the weeds, so I'll come back after I say the fancy term. So probiotics have to be live microorganisms that, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit to the host. Now, what does all that actually mean? Live microorganisms, meaning they need to be alive at the time that you take the product. 2, adequate amounts. That means the amounts that are listed on the product have been verified in some sort of research lab or study that's what's in there. And then number 3 is confer a health benefit to the host, that it's just been shown in different research settings to actually have a benefit on human health. And there's not a lot of there's a ton of clinical trials on actual supplemental probiotics, but there's not any on kombucha, on fermented yogurt. There's some on, I believe it's kimchi, in some patients with, I think it's constipation, predominant IBS. Someone will have to fact check me on that. But the microorganisms that are added to these fermented foods, the amount that's listed on the ingredient label isn't the amount you're actually ingesting. That's the amount that was added when they did the fermentation process. And like we talked about earlier, the stomach acidity is so high, or the stomach environment is so acidic that it's not going to allow a lot of things to survive it. So some of those organisms that have been added to these fermented foods aren't going to make its way through the stomach still intact. So if you're looking for GI benefits from eating fermented foods, I think that's a good idea in practice, and it has good intentions behind it. And I think fermented foods can do a lot to be a part of a well-rounded diet, but they're not the same thing as probiotics. So don't take them thinking they'll have the same effect. And 2, some people who have histamine intolerance will not handle fermented foods well, because fermented foods are very, very high in histamine. So that these are people that after they drink kombucha or have fermented yogurt get really, really bloated and really, really distended. So just things to keep an eye out for. And the last and 5th myth centered around probiotics is one that I think is the most important myth that needs kind of debunking or addressing, and it's the most important one that needs to be put out there to the masses, and that is that probiotics can fix any gut issue. You hear it, I even hear it in school right now, or even patients that come to me and they say, oh, like I'm bloated, do you think I should take a probiotic? Or they come to me having already been diagnosed with IBS, and they said, yeah, I didn't really change my diet, I just take a probiotic, and shocker, it didn't help. And that's because probiotics can't mask what I'll call unoptimal lifestyle. So if you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating a nutrient-dense diet, if your stress is really high, if you're not exercising or exercising the wrong way, taking the world's best probiotics will not cover up for all of those things. A lot of times in probiotic research, what you'll find is that they work really well when they're coupled in tandem with a dietary intervention. So for people with IBS, low FODMAP in conjunction with taking probiotics does wonders for a lot of people's digestive woes. So don't buy into any of the hype that you can just walk into any health food store and buy any probiotic without actually changing your diet, without addressing stress, without addressing these just foundational lifestyle pillars. And that's why I think it's really, really important that people seek out an experienced clinician, seek out a functional medicine provider, just someone who has knowledge in the probiotic space and who has experience in working with people in tailored nutrition strategies, tailored supplemental regimes, and really knows a lot of this nuance and can kind of sift through a lot of the BS that's out there in the supplement industry. So thank you guys for tuning into this video. Now this wasn't a poo-poo, no pun intended, on probiotics. I think probiotics are a wonderful product, and I think when you get the right one, they can really do wonderful things. I just wanted to address and dispel some of the things that I've seen that are really just forcing people to spend way too much money on the wrong types of products when there's really, really tried and true strategies that can work really well to help address someone's underlying gut issues. And I'll post a few links in the comment section of articles I've written about what to look for in probiotics, what to look for in different physicians that are trying to work with you on gut health. So anyways, I hope you guys found this video informative. I hope you found it somewhat helpful, maybe. And if you did, make sure to leave it a like, comment down below on anything you learned or if you have any questions, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And as always, guys, trust in your gut.